Well, I never thought that I was going to make another video about my research because I was like waiting for the end of the world and the apocalypses. And I never thought about joining an university or someone being interested in my research. But if that's so, in some reality, my research is important because um, because the crisis and all the sickness and all the different things that are happening in the world can make persons feel pushed to do immoral acts, anti-hygienic rituals, in multitudinarial sexual acts and even abortions and abusing women in the name of God. Um, uh, the relationship that the corruption in the church, it hasn't been entirely understand as how it is, which is a systemic problem, and not only a personal failed. Um, I am doing research in Guatemala, in Central America, taking care of my nephews and my mom, very away from Catholic researches because they are the ones more vulnerable to be pushed to perform these rituals in the name of God. And the fact that there's increase, the crises are increasing and the sickness are increasing, make the Catholic and the religious Christian persons more vulnerable to think that the last time of the world are coming, and it means that they have to perform some kind of sexual multitudinarial acts to be away from that sickness. I just have to say that I am okay, that everyone is free to do whatever they want. The problem that I have with these Christians and Catholic persons, actually, I am a Catholic person, but I don't perform sexual multitudinarial rituals. Um, and I know person who perform this, and as a researcher, I have been invited to join these groups, and for me it was really shocking to see that Catholic persons were inviting me to do that. Um, Inclusive, they are trying to push me to to do that with my family and my nephews and my the kids on my family. This I don't have really evidence of this, but the silence that um, that is going through this relationship that I used to have with these researchers has just cut once I start this research. So it's kind of really evident by the silence that these persons are not only performing this because I know they are inviting me to that, but they don't support any researcher who is against these rituals. Again, I am not against these rituals. I am just against the ignorance of these rituals. I believe that if you want to perform anything, you have to do it with the law. If the constitution of your country allows you to abuse children, then you are able to abuse children. But if you're not allowed to abuse children, no matter how big your religion is, you should not abuse children. So it's kind of tricky to explain how I know all this because it's been years to be inside this world, and just like 7 years ago I understood all the magnitude of what I was surrounded as a Catholic person. And this doesn't happen with the ordinary persons. This usually happens with really high status persons or researchers. So, for example, the researcher I am criticizing, I think he's describing the acts in an axiomatic Donald game, and I've been trying to ask him where is this dynamics that he is describing, because it's really complicated dynamic, where this dynamic is being applied. And the photo that he used to illustrate his essay is a couple making sex, and with an oil painting that looks like what the technique of Van Gogh, which is with a lot of pasta. And there's some kind of rituals that existentialism, that they believe that they are making themselves in a existentialism way. So the plastic thing, it's very accurate to this dynamics, because somehow they believe that they are more virtue, will have more virtues, or they are making some kind of construction of themselves by performing these multitudinarial acts. So this Catholic person that I knew and I am criticizing never answered me my mails. He was answering my mails like seconds after I was sending it to him, when I was making another kind of research on creativity. But once I start with this topic, he stopped talking to me at all. So I am curious and more intrigued on why these Catholic persons, and like him, other Catholic researchers, stopped talking to me since I've been talking about this topic. And I believe that even if this is what I'm saying is a crazy thing and no one is performing these rituals, my research is important just for the possibility that someone is pushing someone else by telling him that it's okay for Christians to abuse children and women in the name of God. So my problem, of course, is not with the ritual. I believe you have to do whatever your country is telling you, allowing you to do. My problem is with the obligation, and especially with Christians, because I, as a Catholic, as a Christian person, I've been feeling pushed to be in these rituals, and they have been invited me as an obligation for being a Catholic. And the funny thing is that in the Bible and the whole doctrine, and even in the doctrine of the church, right, in the catechism, it's definitely very clear how these multitudinarial acts and abuse over others is not allowed, especially for Christians. It's been described as idolatry and as impure acts, and also as the acts of the Antichrist. And if our God is Christ, the Antichrist is the opposite of God, so it's like the worst thing you can actually do. And in Apocalypse, which is one of the last books of the last book of the Bible, when it's making the last prophecy, is describing how this whole group of persons who belong to the church will be unmasked on their trying of trump others precisely with these rituals. So it's very funny and curious for me to see that these Christian and Catholic persons, even if they know the doctrine of the Catholic and Christian persons, and they know the Bible and they know the prophecies about this, they are not interested of my research. Instead of that, they haven't call me back when I am asking for a thesis director for ending my PhD degree hypothesis and research. So I think that we should be warning everyone, and that's why my views are interesting, because even if there's no corruption, we have to prevent that corruption to happen. Um, um, if they are not, if they are not interested in my research, and they are as a Catholic universities, I don't know why a non-Catholic university could be interested on this research. So maybe that's why I never really have pushed myself to show my research to others, because I've been trying for years to show this to Catholic persons, and they silence me, or they are not interested to follow my research. So I never try with other universities non-Catholic, because I think if non-Catholic are not interested, why not, if Catholic persons are not interested, why non-Catholic university will be interested in my work? But anyway, there's a prophecy about systemic corruption, and we know the power can be corrupted. So my study is important for religious or non-religious persons, just to understand how this sickness and crisis, hard to understand by science, are the kind of excuses that people may use to push others to perform rituals, like the last time solution. And my thesis used moral law, common sense, science, and also the same doctrine to show that all this thing, pushing others to be abused or allowing themselves to be in multitudinarial sex activities in rituals, it's just a trump. As I already say, I am not against any kind of activity if it's according to the law of the country. My problem is when they are trying to tell you that if you want to be a researcher in Catholic issues, you have to be inside a ritual or inside some kind of groups of Illuminatis or some kind of things. I believe that everyone is free to join everything they want, but I don't believe that's a exclusive requirement for thinking, because I think the reasonable thinking came from the humankind, the humanity, and everyone, even if they don't join these groups, are able to think and make some hypotheses and work for others. It includes and I think that probably for centuries, if that was a requirement to make some kind of Catholic research in philosophy, that may show us why we have some kind of not good research or not good society, because if the requirement for using something is to get involved with a drug, you will always get out from that, like thinking that the drug is the best thing on life. So you're never going to be able to make an impartial view about the using drugs, because if you have to use drugs to talk about drugs, then you're going to write essay about drugs saying that drugs is the best. So my point is that we need my research, because I am giving a different point of view that is not inside these rituals. I never have the chance, well, I did have the chance to get inside these rituals, and I say no. That's why I know personals in Catholic Church in connection with Rome are inside these rituals, because they are. I traveled with these persons to Rome, and they have very close connection with Rome and Vatican, and they invited me to these rituals. So I know these persons exist. I know these things exist. But of course, what I'm trying to do is not point it out and say you're a bad person, but trying to show them how these things are not an obligation. I mean, if they are trying to tell me that I have to in order to be able to research with them in the Catholic universities they work, and they want to put me on as an obligation, I will be joining a group of personals that could be ignorance for centuries, because they never got the chance to have a different view from the non-users. They only have the view of the persons inside the group. And if these rituals are sexual and multitudinarial, imagine all these persons in this kind of mantra and having a lot of pleasure and climax, and they definitely will think that that's the best thing in the world. Like a person who is using drugs will think that that's the best thing in the world. But what happened with a person who used creativity and use another way to enjoy life, he won't like to get inside drugs because he has another way to get high or to get happy. And if someone wants to make an essay about how to be happy in life, and if for writing about happiness you have to go through drugs, you always going to put in your essays that the only way to get happy is with drugs. So I believe that persons and the whole world need my research, because I am the kind of person who is vulnerable to be pushed as an obligatory way to perform these rituals. I, thank God, was able to reject that opportunity, and I have understand by creativity and art, that's part of my last essay, to see how creativity, art, colors, and a different way of understanding aesthetics can help you to be away from these rituals and to understand different ways to join this universal truth where we all coexist, without feeling the need of joining these mantra sexual multitudinarial acts that seduce a lot of vulnerable persons, especially these Catholic persons who believe God is pushing them to do that. So we know power can be corrupted, and my study is important for religion and non-religious persons because it's talking about something that it could happen. Corruption can happen. This sickness and crisis that we have in the world, that it's hard to understand by science, are the kind of excuses for persons, especially Catholics and Christians, to push others to perform rituals, sacred and obscure rituals, as the last time solution. My thesis used moral law, common sense, and science, and the doctrine to show that this could be a trump. And I know and how any person, especially Christians, must be ready for an independence from the corrupted hierarchy. So they will be empowered to join the authority of the truth, coming from the Holy Spirit. this is understanding for religious persons, but in other words, it means thinking by yourself. The expression of the Holy Spirit is something that it's propheticized by Catholic Church, by Catholic and Christian religions, and basically we can translate that as common sense and thinking by yourself. So my thesis is important not only for religious but non-religious persons, and understanding that these times of crisis, when the hierarchy is corrupted, is the perfect moment for the Holy Spirit, or for this personal reasonable thinking to come for us and think by ourselves. This thinking by ourselves will give us the instructions without any hierarchy interventions, which is not, it doesn't mean a relative truth or a subjective truth, but a personal access to understand the universal truth that will transcend us and involve us, making us coexist on Him. By that perception, by that perception, the corruption of the power as a hierarchy is no longer a hopeless crisis, but the beginning of the encounter of the humans with His nature, with His free nature, feeling responsible for the acts instead of following the rules with blind faith. So basically, that's my my research keys point, and I haven't been asking for new universities to be interested in this research, because I have been doing this for years with Catholic universities and Catholic persons, and they reject me, or they say that they need some kind of presence interviews. And of course, as a person who was already invited to these rituals, I know in the mafia and the corruption that is with this kind of groups, that they don't want their secrets to be open up and share with others. And so I'm a little afraid, I have to say so. And I feel I just been doing research in my house for many years, like 7 years inside my house. I'm taking care of my nephews and my mom, and also doing research. But I haven't been interested in sharing my points with others, because I think that if Catholic persons, researchers, or universities are not interested in this, I don't see why other universities will. But that describes my situation, my status, and well, this is